Among hordes of horror franchises from the 2000s, Jeepers Creepers is one name that comes up every single time we talk about the best horror stories of all time. The film was inspired by a real-life criminal case and had such a widespread cultural impact that it branched out into an entire franchise. Unfortunately, the series soon went on a downward spiral amidst legal battles, controversies, and repeated plot lines that made the rest of the entries in the franchise feel a little repetitive. While it started on a high note, Jeepers Creepers can be best described as a franchise in chaos, and today we're going to explore all the nitty-gritty details behind its failure and tell you why it happened. Before we get into this explanation though, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us it means everything. Thank you. Let's begin. The birth of a horror icon, Jeepers Creepers, 2001. The franchise kicked off with the release of the original Jeepers Creepers in 2001, which was directed by Victor Salva. The film starred Gina Phillips and Justin Long in the lead roles and was a commercial success at the box office. It had a huge cultural impact, and the Creeper even became a huge horror icon who's often referenced in people's Halloween costumes even decades after the film's release. The film blended supernatural horror with some good old suspense, as the antagonist, the Creeper, is introduced as a demonic serial killer played by Jonathan Breck. Interestingly, this premise was inspired by the Wisconsin serial killer Ed Gein, who was finally placed under arrest in 1957 for committing several murders and then using his victims' skin as furniture covers and so forth. In fact, Gein even admitted to illegally exhuming bodies from the cemetery and using his victims' corpses to create a suit and dressing them up as his dead mother, among other horrific things. These shocking confessions were the basis for many horror movies, ranging from The Silence of the Lambs to Psycho and even the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And the Creeper seems to be inspired by this same serial killer. Jeepers Creepers followed siblings Trish and Derry Jenner as they traveled home from spring break and stumbled across an old truck driver dumping several dead bodies into a large pipe. As they try to get to the bottom of things, they're accompanied by Giselle Gary Hartman, who tells them all about the demonic serial killer called the Creeper. As the sibling duo tries to get in touch with the authorities, they learn that the Creeper is out and about and that he's known for killing and feasting on humans for 23 days every 23 years. The plot soon unravels as they find themselves facing the demonic antagonist in the flesh, and the film even ends with the Creeper getting his hands on Derry. The film was praised for creating an atmosphere of suspense and terror that keeps the audience on the edge of their seats. It's best described as an unsettling, intelligent, and gory horror flick, and it was such a huge success that the creators soon went ahead and spun an entire franchise based on the character. Shadows behind the camera. Victor Salva's controversy. While Jeepers Creepers was a huge hit, it was directed by a controversial director, Victor Salva, who had returned to Hollywood after being convicted of sexually abusing child actor Nathan Forrest Winters while shooting Clown House in 1989. Salva was regarded as Francis Ford Coppola's protege, but things went downhill for him after the authorities uncovered videotapes of him being involved with children and found him in possession of child pornography. While he served time in prison and his films were greatly boycotted at the time, he eventually got another chance in the industry and made films such as Powder, Peaceful Warrior, and Dark House. His most famous work, however, is the Jeepers Creepers franchise, which was produced by Coppola and was regarded as his one career hit that paved the way for him to remain in the industry despite his problematic past. Sometimes the real monsters are behind the camera. The myth expands. Jeepers Creepers 2. Releasing in 2003, Jeepers Creepers 2 was once again written and directed by Victor Salva, and it followed the Creeper as he pursued a school bus full of high school students and targeted them next. Once again, Francis Ford Coppola returned as an executive producer, and the film was produced by Myriad Pictures and American Zoetrope. The film stars Ray Wise as Jack Taggart, a farmer who's determined to track down the Creeper after he abducts his son, Billy Taggart, on the 22nd day of the feeding. The film starts out with Jack Taggart's pain and fury, and soon goes back to the Creeper, who has his eyes set on a high school basketball team and attempts to attack them by disabling their school bus. While the film ends with the Creeper barely surviving, Jack Taggart still seems determined to punish him and even waits for 23 years for the Creeper to come back to life so he can kill him. The film grossed about $63 million with a budget of just $17 million, but it also received negative reviews from fans and critics alike. The film was praised for expanding the Creeper's mythology and lore while also reintroducing the same slasher themes, recurring plot lines, and an antagonist that lacked personality. However, fans considered it to be a thoroughly entertaining sequel that kept the legacy of the franchise alive, and the favorable reviews soon encouraged another sequel in the form of Jeepers Creepers 3. Franchise collapse, Jeepers Creepers 3 and its fallout. The main downfall of the franchise was marked by the release of Jeepers Creepers 3, which was released all the way back in 2017. The plot followed Sheriff Dan Tashtego and Sergeant Davis Tubbs as they launched an investigation on the Creeper after Derry Jenner's disappearance, while a flashback to 23 years ago introduces us to Kenny Brandon as he witnesses the Creeper's hand being cut off. In the present day, Kenny urges his mother, Galen, to move away from town to avoid the Creeper, but she ends up getting even more involved to the point where she touches the Creeper's severed hand to learn more about it through psychic visions. Amidst all of this, the Creeper kidnaps Galen's granddaughter and leaves her with no choice but to work with the authorities to track the demonic monster down. Jeepers Creepers 3 was widely criticized for its poor special effects and low-quality CGI, but what truly stirred up trouble was the public controversy surrounding the script content. The movie was once again written by none other than Victor Salva, who had already been convicted of child abuse in the past. When they first started filming in 2016 under Myriad Pictures, many Canadian talent agencies warned actors against working with him, and production was paused for quite some time. Eventually, they managed to finalize the cast and continue with filming, but their troubles were far from over. There was one particular piece of dialogue in the movie that was directed at a sexual abuse victim, and it said something along the lines of, "Can you blame him though? I mean, look at her. The heart wants what it wants, am I right?" This dialogue created quite a bit of stir for hinting at child molestation as a plot point, and while it was edited out in the theatrical cut, it was a part of the movie's screenings for critics. Victor Salva's involvement in a project that hinted at child molestation left a bad taste in the audience's mouth, and the fact that he had written the movie only added more fuel to the fire. This controversy was the final nail in the coffin for the franchise, and Jeepers Creepers has since been doomed, with very little hopes for a future revival. Interestingly, Salva already had thoughts for the next release in the franchise that followed the ending of Jeepers Creepers 3, but this was no longer a possibility, at least under his supervision. Attempted rebirth, Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Despite all the controversy surrounding Jeepers Creepers, director Timo Vuorensola stepped up to direct Jeepers Creepers Reborn in a hopeful attempt to reboot the franchise. Written by Jake Seal and Sean Michael Argo, this film starred Sidney Craven and Imran Adams in leading roles and was released in 2022. The plot followed a young man and woman who traveled to the Horror Hound Festival in Louisiana, where the woman ends up becoming a target for the reawakened Creeper. As she starts experiencing strange visions about the town's past and the festival history, they can't help but sense the presence of this demonic monster who had somehow been summoned once again. Even though the reboot hoped to make some narrative changes and give it a fresh spin with the help of new leadership, it garnered negative reviews from fans and critics alike. The reboot was regarded as a massive failure with a poorly written script, badly produced scenes, and a shoddy aesthetic that failed to capture the tense, suspense-filled atmosphere of the original series. Legal wars and production troubles. The fate of Jeepers Creepers 5. To make matters worse, Myriad Pictures also filed a property fraud lawsuit against Infinity Films Holdings on March 16, 2021 over the fate of the Jeepers Creepers franchise. Myriad Pictures claimed that Infinity Films Holdings had produced the reboot without their knowledge or involvement and even sold the rights to Screen Media Films. While this case is still ongoing, Myriad Pictures' perspective on it makes Jeepers Creepers Reborn appear to be an unauthorized fan film and also leaves the fate of the franchise unknown. Legacy in tatters. Can Jeepers Creepers bounce back? While Jeepers Creepers started out on a mega successful note, it went only downhill with each new release. Of course, franchise films are often criticized for repetitive plots or unnecessary sequels and spin-offs, but Jeepers Creepers was not a typical example of the same. One could even argue that the franchise had a lot of substance, but it simply couldn't survive after the controversies surrounding Victor Salva. The attempt at rebooting the franchise was also a failure, and the legal battles over the reboot's rights only added to the bad reputation of the entire franchise. Even if the legal issues were to be resolved, it's hard to tell if any producers, writers, or directors would want to be associated with any future projects, and it would be a miracle if the franchise made a comeback at all. marvelous verdict. And with that, we've explored the entire lore of the Jeepers Creepers franchise, right from the initial success and controversies to public reception and its eventual failures at the box office, as well as its legal troubles. There's no denying that it's one of the best cult classic horror franchises of all time, but again, it doesn't seem to have a bright future ahead, and maybe we can only revisit the original films and immortalize them in the horror halls of fame. We hope you enjoyed deep diving into the Jeepers Creepers lore with us, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.